Right. Welcome, Hovik. It's great to have you here today. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me.
Thank you. Great for having me.
Yeah. So I wanted to start by asking you the first question, which is about your recent change. You've very recently embarked on an entrepreneurial journey yourself after
Yeah.
being the head of global marketing at Elab Next. Can you
Yeah.
tell us why did you have this urge to start something of your own?
To be honest with you, there were multiple factors that were playing here. It's been something that has been in the back of my mind for years, but I hadn't crystallized the idea yet.
Mhm.
But at its core, what actually drove me when it got to that point, what it drove me to start my own business it was technically about choosing for myself. So over the years, I would say I matured both personally and professionally, and I reached a point where I felt confident enough to take that leap. If I'm looking at my current situation, so I'm no longer in my 20s. I'm not. I'm no longer single. I have a family. So the 20 hours that I used to have when no one depended on me aren't the same anymore. So that made me kind of realize that the window of opportunity of how much I can do in a day and the luxury of time that I once had was kind of closing in. So it created also a sense of urgency for me to act. And to some extent, it was also me understanding myself and knowing that I grow most when I can set my own pace and I take control of my future and being in the driver's seat more. That gave me I would say the confidence and the motivation to achieve my goals. Um, yeah, plus you'll also recognize when you start for yourself, that's never the right time. It's the timing is never perfect, but you just need to decide to do it and go for it. And that's what I did. And that's how 36 Growth Marketing was founded.
Nice.
Yeah.
I would think that someone who has started a family and you have a kid now,
Yeah.
congratulations, would actually not take that step, right? Because it's a kind of a risky thing to go
Yeah.
on your own and start a business. You're basically into the unknown. Whereas if you held on to a standard corporate job, that might give you more
Yeah.
safety and stability. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, definitely. That's something that's always on your mind when you have a mortgage, when you have bills to pay. So these are things that you take into consideration. But for me, the price of not doing it mentally was getting higher and higher. So
Mhm.
once I knew that I can, and I had, then it was just something that I had to do.
Yeah.
And also knowing in the back of my mind, if I completely fail, there's always the option of going back into the corporate world. But yeah, you don't start something like this if you don't believe that you can actually do it. So,
Yeah.
but it's definitely something that's on your mind. Yeah,
Yeah. It's interesting how after 30, after you hit 30,
yeah,
urgency is on a different level. You start realizing that, man, I actually don't have that much time left.
yeah,
So if I don't do it now, I don't do it ever. You think of like aging and all of that
yeah,
factor. So I guess this fear actually pushes you to take steps versus
yeah,
when you're in your 20s, you think you have all your life ahead of you. And so you're just like, I'll do it later
yeah.
type of
Fear is a
mentality.
bigger, yeah, fear is a bigger motivator than you think. It's the biggest motivator, I would say,
Yeah,
for,
yeah,
for
for sure.
acting. But yeah, yeah,
For
definitely.
sure. So you're apart from your new entrepreneurial venture, you're also mentoring at Startup Bootcamp, correct?
Yes, yes.
And what type of startups do you mentor? What is your task basically?
So I mentor specifically SaaS startups. So
Mhm.
I'm here to meet new founders to see if there's an interesting SaaS business that I can guide in their early stages.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm looking for. Of course, there needs to be a match also, like your personality wise and the way they think and work needs to kind of be a match with how you do things, so you can have the best results. But I basically started at the startup bootcamp to help, to help startups, but it's also a learning experience for myself because every company is different. Every market is different, every product is different, and they go through different things, and it's really interesting to both help like companies that are pre-MVP even like or they have an idea on how to get there the best way, but also how you can help companies that are much further in there. So it's good to have that contrast, so that's why.
Yeah, great. And that's great because we're going to talk about marketing for pre MVP stage companies through until they get to product market fit today. And so I want
Yeah.
to start with actually a notion that every startup founder, when you're just starting out, one of the most important milestones for you is idea validation, right? Not idea or product validation. No, well, actually, idea validation at the start.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of my own startup that I've been working on, and it's still in workings and it's paused a
Mhm.
little bit right now. But so a couple of years ago, I started playing with this idea of creating an app for women that
Yeah.
would help essentially to come up with a skincare routine.
Hmm.
So essentially, a customer, a user, what they would do is they would take a photo of themselves, fill out an assessment, and then the algorithm would spit out a skincare routine, like morning and evening skincare routine for them that would help them
Yeah.
basically, and also products that would be recommended with the skincare routine, obviously.
Okay.
And so this the first thing obviously that I was supposed to do was to make sure that this idea is valid, and
Yeah.
to so I went on to start thinking about validation. If
Yeah.
you were to guide me today
Yeah.
to continue working on this idea, what would you say? How should I go about thinking of validating my idea, my existing idea?
So yeah, that's a great question. I guess what it really comes down to is customer data, like user data. So the first step that you need to do is to actually build an MVP, which stands for a minimal viable product. You can do a step before that. You can have an idea, say, hey, this is what I want to do. Would this speak to you? Would you use this app? But that's a completely different thing. Having a good idea and getting okay from people versus to having people actually use it
Hmm.
on a daily basis and pay you for year on year because that's you have a subscription model. So as a SaaS business, you are basically running a subscription model. So you need to make sure that you continuously deliver impact for the end user so that they have a motivation to renew the contract with you, right? So
Hmm.
what you need to do is build a minimum viable product. So um, you described it yourself. You encountered a problem probably in your day-to-day life or in the life of your of the people you know, and you noticed, hey, there might be a business opportunity here. So besides having that idea and getting the okay from people, yeah, this I would use this to actually build it, and it does not have to be like fully polished. It just needs to have be functional enough to start conversations with your potential users or customers. And you can do that through actual interviews or surveys. And but the goal is to gather detailed feedback right from the start. And if you've built something that customers are not only willing to pay for, but they are also enthusiastic enough to share with others, so refer new users, new customers, or even request new features. These are indicators that you're on the right path and you need to kind of keep pushing it forward. On the other hand, if the data does not support what you're trying to build, it might be time to kind of pivot where they are that in the direction that they are giving you the information for, or even completely just abandon the idea. So that's what I would do. Yeah.
So building an MVP, I am no technical startup founder, and I don't have a technical founder on my team. So
Yeah.
how should I go about this? Because I don't know if this idea is valid enough to actually find a co-founder that is technical, A,
Yeah.
or B, build it on myself. I can't do it. So
Yeah.
what would you suggest me in this case?
So in that case, there are a lot of software companies, the IT services companies that actually help you build your MVP. But so it's a service that they offer. You give them the idea and they build it up for you. and you put it out there in the world and try to gather as much users as possible so you can understand if it's working or not and where you need to push more. But ideally, you would like to have someone who's technical on your side to take it to the next level, and you kind of need to maybe try to find a co-founder that will be able to help you with it, give them shares in the company and the startup, and try to get the next round of financing in to further develop the product once you have validated that there is a demand from the market for the product that you're trying to offer.
So
Yeah.
basically using a no-code tool, you would say.
It will be very difficult to get funding for a tool that is no code. The VCs will not fund it. So because that's where your intellectual property is in the
Mhm.
code. And I would not do a no code tool. I would actually I would develop the tool. If you don't have the technical skills, you can hire someone to do that for you, or find
Remember, I
someone.
don't have money. I'm a
Yeah.
startup founder,
Yeah.
zero money at
Yeah,
this
I mean
point.
there are a lot of interesting places where you can even pitch the idea and get initial funding for it. Even like I know some startups that have built like a crowdfunding platform for startups, for SaaS startups themselves. So that might be an avenue you can explore.
Mhm.
But if you don't have money to do it, you need to find someone with technical skills who can build it for you together with you. You give them equity into the company if they believe in it, and you go from there. So
I'm going to challenge you on this one. You
mm,
mentioned that the people are not going to fund you, right? Like if the VC is not going to fund a no-code tool, obviously, and
yeah.
I get that. But my goal right now is basically to see if this idea is
Hmm.
valid enough for me to continue investing in this resource. Would you still say that a no-code tool in this case wouldn't work? If my goal is just simply to
I
make sure that this idea is valid before I move on to the next
Yeah,
stage.
I'm not saying you can't. It's going to be harder for you to do it. So you can
Mhm.
validate it that way, maybe. The idea that it works, and then you take it off the market and you build it from scratch, because that's, yeah, in the code. The code is where your intellectual property is. That's basically it.
Mhm.
So it it's possible, but it will be difficult.
Mhm. So
Yeah.
your suggestion, your recommendation for me as a startup founder is to start with an MVP.
Yeah, you need
Okay.
one. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
So
definitely.
I have an MVP. Let's say
Okay.
it's a shitty first draft, it's like really bad, but I do have an MVP.
Yeah.
What is my next step? How do I find the right customers to test it with? Like, what are some of the ways that I can do it?
Well, the first thing you need to do, if like if we are talking about like a business to business type of MVP, that's where I can give you the most useful insights in. You have, in general, you have an idea of in what market you want to be present.
Mhm.
So, and you know who might be your potential customers, but you don't know that for sure, because within a market you have different pockets of niche subset segments, and you don't know who is at the end of the day going to be the final user of your company. So you need to actually reach out to people, give them, ask them to try it out, and once it picks up, you will find the early adopters in the beginning, and the innovators and the early adopters. That those are going to be the main users of your product. So you can ask them to try it out. I actually get that a lot from a lot of founders, like, "Hey, I've built this product. Would you be able to have a look at it, use it, see if it's useful for you, and give me feedback on how to improve it?" So that's the first thing, and then based on that, you try to attract as many possible users from different industries. You price your product for free or at a very, very low price range,
Mhm.
so you can attract the most possible users. And based on that data, on the usage data, you check, okay, who is actively using my product most. who is at the end of the day, paying me for this product, staying with me for a very long
Mhm.
time, and also referring others to use the product. So that's how you can validate who, uh, what type of company and what subsegment are the best fit for your product. And once you reach a certain milestone of revenue, you can kind of identify, right, this is I've reached product market fit. I need 1,000 more just like them. And then you start basically identifying the personas within those companies that are the decision makers and who influence the decision making. And that's how you kind of get to that point of product market fit from an MVP stage.
Let's take one step back because something that I've
Mhm.
struggled with myself was
Mhm.
how do you go about making assumptions which customers to reach out to do the testing? What, how do I think about it? Do I do some kind
Yeah.
of desk research and then come up with like few assumptions of these are probably the customers that would use my product? What is the guidance? What guidance would you
Yeah.
give in that?
So let's say you have that product and you want to sell it to users within a specific market. Let's say outside of your startup. Maybe you can apply that later on to your situation. But let's say you've built a product that is specifically for the educational market. So
Mhm.
within the educational market, you have, let's say, kindergartens, primary schools, high schools, universities, private versus public. Um, and within those markets, you have like the small size organizations, the mid market, and then the enterprise versions. When you try to understand, okay, where do I need to go? You usually try to pick one or two of these segments where you will have like the path of least resistance, the smallest
Mhm.
one that you can dominate quickly. So a good exercise to figure that out is the TAM SAM SOM analysis. I don't know if that's something that you've ever heard of, but it's basically you try to understand what is the total like addressable market globally where I can if I had unlimited resources that I could reach out to and try to make them like my customers. And then you try to go a more granular, you do the serviceable addressable market. That's the part of the market that you can uh, easily service, but you don't have the resources to fully address them. And then you have the smaller portion of that, which is the serviceable obtainable market, which is where you apply all the filters like geography, the size of the company, and et cetera, et cetera. And then you try to understand, all right, in this subsegments, where do I have the least competition? Where is the least regulation? How big are the deal sizes and how long does it take for me to close a deal here? If you're going for the enterprise segment, you're gonna have a lot of resistance because it's more complex to sell within enterprise versus, let's say, small business or
Mhm.
a mid market company, because you have less decision makers within those companies and they buy in a completely different ways. So you kind of go into those things, and usually you end up with one or two pockets within that market which you can dominate the easiest. Maybe you already have a customer there or two, and that's kind of giving you like your foot in the how do you say, foot in the door in that market, and you
Mhm.
can kind of build on that.
And this model that you talked about, TAM, SAM, SOM,
Yeah.
that is again the result of desk research and assumptions that you make about your customers, correct?
Yes, also, but also like the users that you have, like you can see if if the users that you already have accumulated, if you already have customers within those
You
markets.
don't have customers. Imagine like it's right at the beginning, so you're trying to make the assumptions
Yeah,
about your customers.
yeah, then in that case, you just need to go on those desk research and you need to try. It's really about validating and confirming and discovering in this stage. You don't really have like a set of yeah, things that you know you can do because you know this is my ideal customer profile. These are the people within those companies, so you can scale your activities. You can get more funding for those kind of for you to be able to scale. So if you don't have any customers, you make assumptions and you learn. That's basically it. You kind of discover, you try to validate, you learn, you kind of understand which channels work best, where do these
Mhm.
users come from the most, and yeah, that's how you try to get that data at the end of the day because you still need to collect those users and that data.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's about testing, iterating, changing the
Exactly.
assumptions, and then testing those assumptions. And yeah, that's, I think it's a super important point because some people start with assumptions about customers. They test their products with this specific customers and it doesn't work. And
Yeah.
they discontinue working on the startup because they think that, it's not working. So I'm gonna just kill this product. But in
Yeah.
reality, if they continue testing, they will find maybe, right? They might have not found the right segment to focus on. And if they continue just this iteration of testing with different types of segments, then they will find the ideal customer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
About the MVP, so what is your stance on whether you need to put a price on an MVP or should it be free?
There is no hard rule or on if it should be free or there should be a price. But if there's a price, there it needs to be at the lower end. It needs you so you need to the main goal is to get users. So if you have it for free, it's going to be easier. If you have to ask people to pay for it, you will have less users. So it really depends on also what's out there on the market. If you can afford to ask for a price, but I've seen a lot of startups who have a minimal viable product and they
Mhm.
price it like for example there was a startup that I was advising a while ago. They created this project management tool and for developers, and they were asking the same price as let's say a Monday.com or a ClickUp
Mhm.
and I was like, yeah, but you are asking the same starting price as someone that can go to ClickUp and they can get it for free and they can do exactly what you want them to do here in that on that platform. So it doesn't make sense for you to to ask that kind of pricing um,
Mhm.
because you're not going to learn anything and people are not going to pay for it. So it really depends. I would highly suggest first do it for free.
Mhm.
Get the data. That information is far more valuable than earning a couple of thousand dollars or euros a year for the MVP that you've built. So try to get them in for free, have conversations with them, get the data, get the feedback, and build the next version based on that. So that's what I would suggest.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's, I think I agree with that recommendation, but something that I always think about, does the fact that you're offering a free product, a free trial of a product, does
Hmm?
that skew the results in any way, you think? Because if the customer is unwilling to pay for this product,
Yeah.
right? You're basically giving them something for free and they're using it. But in case you put a price on it, they might not use it. Is this something that you're testing at this stage, or it's better to just have it for free, like test it out as much as possible, and then figure out the pricing later on? What is your stance on that?
I mean, you always have that risk. You will always have people who will just make use of it and not pay for you, like not pay for it. You have early adapters. They want to get an edge on the competition, for example. They want to have something that nobody else has. And once you have developed the next version, they will jump on the next shiny product, and they will not even for example, they're not even the right people to ask testimonials or case studies for
Mm.
because they don't want to share that information. They don't want anybody else to know. So, but what you try to get is the way the data on how they use your product, because
Mhm.
you can still get a lot of valuable information, how they use your product, what functionalities they use most, and yeah, what kind of new features they would request. But if If you don't do that, you will have less data. That's the kind of the how do you say it in English? Like
The
uh,
dilemma.
the dilemma, or like the way off or something that you need to do,
Uh-huh.
consideration you need to take on, okay, do I want to make money off of this right now, or do I need to get the data? That's the most important part.
Yeah.
So there is no right or wrong. So wrong way, as long as you understand that if you ask for a price, you will get less paid, less users. That's the yeah, that's the
Mhm.
consideration I would take.
At what stage should I think about marketing strategy? Is it after I've built out the MVP and I'm testing the product after that, or as I'm testing the product, I already need to start thinking about developing marketing strategy for testing the product?
Well, you need to work on your marketing strategy from the beginning. That's
Mm,
that's but marketing has a different role at different stages of the growth within the company. So at a pre-MVP, MVP stage, what marketing basically needs to do is basically marketing has a strategic role at an
yeah.
MVP phase, because you are trying to figure out again who is your ideal customer profile, which channels are kind of working. You need to have a positioning statement at the MVP stage. The growth will not come from marketing. So it's in MVP stage, the growth comes from sales, and the founders are usually the main salespeople of that product. So
Mhm,
marketing is making sure that you have your positioning statement correct. You have a structure and a basis on where you're going to build your future marketing activities on. But at some point, you need to revise it. You need once you hit product market fit and you found your ideal customer profile, you need to redo it, and you need to fine tune your marketing activities. Once you have reached product market fit, then the focus from a marketing perspective changes from strategy to tactical. Now you need to run campaigns. Now you need to do all these other things, hire people, making sure there are processes and tools in place so you can execute your marketing strategy effectively, and basically scale the company at a faster pace. So that's where it kind of changes for marketing. But you need it from day one. At an MVP stage, I would say you don't need like a marketing leader
mhm,
in-house. You need someone who can help you, guide you, unless you've already with for some kind of through some kind of efforts, you've already raised significant funding where you
mhm,
can do those investments earlier on. But at the MVP stage, I wouldn't I wouldn't spend too much on marketing without confirming the
mhm.
direction that you're going to go to. It's the same thing with confirming what features you need to develop for the next version before you like waste your money and develop features that you don't need, your users don't
Mhm.
want. So that's kind of how you need to look at it.
Mhm. And just can you reiterate what is the focus of marketing at the pre MVP and MVP stage?
Strategy. So
Strategy. Mhm.
yeah.
Can you spell
So
it out? What does that mean in this case?
So at a strategic level, you need to first identify who your customers are. So you have different
Mhm,
KPIs as a startup. So
mhm,
the KPIs that you need to track are like the number of positive conversations, how many beta users you've acquired, active users and users that share your product, like feature requests. Those are the KPIs that you need to track, or
mhm,
number of asks to develop the next version, for example. But also, your annual recurring revenue is an important KPI to track, and the
mhm,
MQLs and the user engagement and retention rate. Those are things that you need to build your marketing strategy around and help the founders to kind of, if you are an in-house marketing leader or an advisor, like how to help them to kind of get to that point.
mhm,
So that's what you focus on. You at an MVP, pre-MVP stage, you are really talking about what your product does What
Yeah.
is the unique selling points? What is the positioning? So you're not talking about personas and ideal customer profiles because you haven't confirmed that yet.
Yeah.
And at a PMF stage, you are really tracking like again MQLs, but also cost of conversion, the conversion rate, the average revenue per user, the churn rate, the pipeline metrics that you have, and how you measure your if your brand recognition is growing. So these are you're doing completely different things on a technical level at the PMF stage versus what you're doing at an on a strategic level at the MVP stage.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
This magical word of product market fit, right? Which is another milestone that
Yeah. Yeah.
founders are trying to achieve after they've developed their MVP and are testing it.
Mhm.
So, can you give us a definition of what product market fit is, and how do we know that we have achieved product market fit?
Yeah. So the definition of product market fit is where you have confirmed based on data, actual revenue, also that there is sustainable demand from for your product or services that you have to offer,
Hmm.
specifically for the SaaS business. So there are ways you can measure it, and there are my two favorite ways are the ones that the T2D3 methodology has. So it has like a checklist of 10 things you need to check off.
What is it called again?
The 10 it's a 10-point checklist from the
Uh-huh.
T2D3 methodology.
T2D.
So I've
Okay.
written about it. It's also on my LinkedIn page. I can share it with you later. So the more you go lower down the list, the more difficult it gets. That's one way. And then you have the winning by design methodology from the
Mhm.
revenue architecture, which says, all right, you are targeting, let's say, two segments within that specific industry, enterprise versus mid-market, and the threshold of reaching product market fit is $1 million dollars or euros in annual recurring revenue.
Mhm.
With a side note that in that within those segments, none of your customers needs to be like a company that's a friend or a former employee from which you have developed for which you have developed the product. So that
Mhm.
doesn't count. You subtract that from the total amount, and then you
Mhm.
kind of understand, right, this is how far away I am from product market fit on an annual recurring revenue basis. So both are, I would say, valid. These
Mhm.
are just frameworks, so these are not set in stone. These are just tools that you kind of can use as a diagnostic approach to understand where you are. But both are based on data, and I think that's the most important part, that you need to have data to ensure that you can validate if you are there or not. So
Mhm.
um, both approaches are based on like research and helping hundreds of and thousands of SaaS companies from very small ones to very big ones. So there is a common there's a common way of doing things at some point.
Yeah.
These are methods that you can do. But what I wouldn't do is do it on a gut feeling. Like I feel like I have. That's not good. You need to have data to kind of back it up before you can make the next step. Next
Yeah.
steps in investing in your product and company.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah,
this model that you mentioned will definitely link them in the description and the articles that you've written on
for sure.
LinkedIn. I think that they're super valuable in understanding how do you actually know that you've achieved product market fit and
Yeah,
what are you actually trying to achieve. It's also helpful in setting goals when you are still at your MVP stage.
yeah.
So thinking again, getting back to marketing as the product market fit, you mentioned a few things you need to focus on. Can you spell it out again? Like what are some of the KPIs when you're thinking about marketing at product market fit stage?
The KPIs that are very important from a marketing perspective are the KPIs that you use when you are filling in your pipeline. Because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, the role of marketing, especially in the beginning stage of a company until up to, let's say, $10 million dollars, it's mainly about new customer acquisition. So how does your pipeline look like? How have you defined what are these definitions? Like some say, hey, an AQL, MQL MQAs or like marketing qualified accounts. If you are targeting large accounts, then you are more likely to do outbound marketing tactics versus inbound, where you will get the smaller size accounts.
Mhm.
So it really depends on what segment are you targeting within that industry and what KPIs you are going to do. But at the end of the day, it's really about generating new leads, making sure that you nurture them through the pipeline and get them qualified to a certain extent that sales can take it over from there. And then they onboard them and bring it to the customer success team if you have one, and make sure that the onboarding and adoption of the product is done properly. But overall, the general most important KPIs are the conversion rates and also how much does it cost you to get a lead,
Mhm.
and how many of these customers are churning. So they
Yeah.
at what stage are they churning? So it's volume metrics versus conversion metrics, I would say,
Mm.
it's at each state of the customer journey that you need to measure. And that's because you are really like scaling. You need to learn from you need to learn from past experiences and improve on it. As you go to be more efficient and have a
Mhm.
sustainable growth rate.
And at product market fit stage, you're recommending that you already hire a team of marketing experts or someone responsible for it. And what would you say is the amount of resources you need to
I would say the product market fit,
dedicate?
you need to have the equivalency, or you need to have like a team of five or the equivalency of that.
Hmm.
And that means you can hire part-time freelancers or agencies. And
Hmm.
at the product market fit, you need to really build your marketing team with like specialist disciplines. Like content marketing would be the first one that I would hire if I was in an MVP stage even. That would be
Hmm.
the first hire. After that, I would, in an MVP stage, I would also do product marketing manager. I would do
Hmm.
a marketing operations person, even a graphic designer, to ensure that your company looks good and you look bigger than you are, to build trust
Hmm.
and confidence for your customers. So you need to make sure that you are executing that throughout those disciplines. But everybody that you hire, for example, a copywriter, they need to have multiple skills, because you don't have the luxury, or you usually don't have the funding to hire a specialist for everything. So if
Yeah.
you are hiring someone that's a copywriter, you preferably want someone who also has an understanding of SEO, who can also write good social media copy, who can also publish the blog articles and the case studies on the website, and do some website maintenance and management. So, and the same thing goes for your product marketing person and the marketing operations person. So they need to be able to do multiple things until you get to a point where you have so much you have so much revenue that people want to invest in it, and they want to give you big chunks of money, and then you can build a bigger company. You can afford to hire the best talent in the market. At this stage, you usually don't hire the top talents that are out there. Those go to the Amazons and all these other big corporations that have the means to do that. So
Hmm.
you really need to do the most with all your resources.
Hmm. Yeah, that's very helpful. At what stage do you think you need to start actually also using social media? Is it pre-MVP, MVP, or later on?
Uh,
Because that's also like a lot of time and energy, right? You're spending
yeah,
like crafting, designing posts and content.
yeah. I would start social media marketing the moment that you have an MVP, the moment that you
Mhm.
have a product that you want people to use and to know about, and that's the best time to do it, because if you don't have anything to show, it doesn't make sense to yell about it in the
Yeah.
world. So start as soon as possible when you have something that people can use.
Hmm. And what should you focus on as you're thinking about your social media strategy when you have just built your MVP? What are some pointers you can give? Like, again, considering that you have minimum resources and time
Yeah.
and skills?
Yeah, so it's really about priorities, I would say, and as the founder, you need to be the face of the company, and it's
Mhm,
really about consistency and the quality of the content that you are putting out there. So again, doesn't need to be like a super polished uh, thing in the beginning. It's in the beginning you need to make sure that you get things out there, but make sure that there's quality in there and there's consistency because you need to build your audience and your reach by continuously doing certain things. Start
mhm,
with a platform that you know your potential customers are using
mhm,
and start small. Don't go out there and do all the social media platforms that will spread you out too thin. Pick one,
mhm,
maximum two platforms, and just be good at that until you feel confident enough that you can expand to other platforms.
mhm,
And overall, I would pick areas of topics, like 4 or 5 topics that you want to talk about, and just continuously create content for it. You can dedicate maybe 4 hours a week to it. Just knock those ideas out, and then go take a break, come back, make sure that you refine them and post them.
mhm.
But yeah, th those are the things that I would suggest starting with. So it's not really super complicated. It's just making sure that you put the message out there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So at this stage, if we're talking about MVP stage, then we're trying to put the message out there. If you're testing the product, for instance, then it's like
Mhm.
pushing it for as many users as possible to test. Well, correct, obviously, like the right segment, right? To test the product. And
Yeah.
then when you have validated the idea and the product, then you're already pushing sales. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Transition. Hmm.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
yeah,
yeah,
you're also trying to push it in the MVP stage, also pre-validation because that's you need to still sell it and you need to find out who is willing to buy it.
yeah,
But the validation comes when you have a certain number of let's say, uh, revenue that you have already generated on an annual
yeah,
basis. That's when you find out where if you've hit the validation mark.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to talk about a value proposition and crafting the right value proposition.
Yeah.
Um, so one thing that I've realized as an entrepreneur myself is value proposition can either help you to define what your company is about, but it can also hurt you because it
Yeah.
kind of creates confirmation bias and it restricts you from seeing what the customer actually needs. But you think about this having this value proposition and pushing it to the customers like this is what we offer and not seeing the actual what actually the market needs. How can you think about crafting a value proposition at the initial stages that can actually help you?
So at the initial stage, you need to keep your value proposition as broad as possible. So let's say you are you say let's say you're building your app and it's for women to you can just say in the beginning this is for women, and then at some point when you understand women in a certain age group are using it the most, then you can refine your value proposition to fit better to them. And another way is if you already have users, if you already have some customers, you can kind of create a customer advisory board where you can ask them like, hey,
Mm,
I would like to get your input on a more structured basis. And if I create a messaging or a value proposition, for example, I would like to pitch that to you and see if it resonates with you. And if it doesn't, please give me feedback on what resonates and what doesn't. So that way you can fine tune it, but you need to start somewhere. You need to start and at some point also um, you don't want to market it to everybody. You can't help everybody, so you need to be very selective with what group you can help the most and you want to help and you can help them the best. So that's where you need to kind of yeah that's the
mhm.
direction you need to take to find the ideal match between what you are saying and what you're selling and who you are selling it to.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically you let the market or your customers to dictate what your value proposition should be, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It
Yeah.
needs to match. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. But in the beginning, it's really about like again, it's about discovering and validating, and then let them guide you throughout that process. Yeah.
Yeah. So an advice that I would give also is make sure that your value proposition is not set in stone, but it's something
Exactly.
that you draft initially as an early draft, and then you
Yeah.
refine it with data as you find.
Yeah. What I usually do is we review it every year, and we
Mm,
make small adjustments. So the same thing with eLab Next. When I started, the value proposition was something else, and then we made sure that we fine-tuned our approach a bit more, and then we refined it. And then the year after, we looked at it and we said, all right, is this still relevant, and can we improve on it? So it's something that you need to review on an annual basis. If you do it very well, you don't have to change it every year. You
right.
might or you might tweak a word or a sentence here and there, and that's it. But if you do it really well, you might not need to change it for like a couple of years, and you just stick to it. But stage, every growth stage, you need to look at it, because at some point you have reached the potential of a specific market or a segment. And then you're like, all right, maybe I need to expand my ideal customer profile because I have developed a product to an extent that it can also service this segment of the market. And you need to build, of course, your entire organization needs to be prepared, because from sales to customer success to marketing, every segment has a different go-to-market motion, and you need to make sure that you have that already there before you make that move. But you might need to refine it then. So again, so you need to see, okay, where are we going? Are we growing enough, or do we need to expand? Do we need to go into a different market? Do we need to approach the different personas? So you need to understand that it needs tweaking. So it's not set in stone.
Yeah.
Indeed, it needs to be flexible, and you need to be willing to make those adjustments
Yeah,
when
and I would say even for startups, for early stage startups, it's not yearly revisions of, but it's monthly, probably even, especially in the beginning, monthly, weekly iterations of your value proposition as you get
yeah.
more data.
Yeah, I would say take some time to define it before you
Right.
put it out there. Like it's something that like there are very easy methods. Like my favorite one is Steve Blank's method, because it's very
Mhm.
simple and clear. It's like we help X do Y by doing Z. Basically, you
Uh-huh.
fill in the blanks, and that's your value proposition. It's basically the impact that you promise. But even one sentence, it would be good for you to take like months of deliberation and improving upon it, and to make sure that you do it the right way, so you can spend your time building the business instead of like changing sentences. That's kind of
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, thank you so much. I think we have enough data to start with on marketing, but I want to ask a last question. In your
Yeah.
experience, as you're working with so many startups, what are the challenges that startup founders face the most when it comes to marketing in their initial stages?
Not knowing where to start, and
Mhm.
not knowing what not to do. So I've spoken with so many startups who built an MVP, and they felt like they were so confident that they had the product for the right audience, and they spent hundreds of thousands of euros on Google ads and LinkedIn ads, and they didn't get anywhere with it, and they were like, oh, maybe this was not the right approach. So I get it, like the chaotic part of the startup mentality, where you are like really trying to build something awesome, can kind of distract you. The enthusiasm can make you go and make strategically wrong decisions. You're excited. You want the world to know about it, but you don't do the right things before you take those final operational steps, and that can cost you. And then you basically pull the product off the market, and you kind of try to start over. And I've heard so many times like, yeah, we did that. Yeah, we definitely did that. And it's we learned about it. I wish we didn't. So that's basically that would be the main thing that I encounter a lot, that not knowing where to start and having some kind of structure. And first things that you need to do is very important, to
Yeah.
have the focus.
Yeah, so it's good to first strategize, understand, get some data before you actually start thinking about
Yeah,
building your marketing strategy.
yeah,
And yeah.
yeah. I know it's difficult, but it's really, really important to do so. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Hovik. I think this was
Yeah.
super useful for me as a
Thank you.
startup founder, and I hope it will be useful for others as well. Good luck with your event today at Startup Bootcamp,
Thank you.
and yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me, and have a great rest of the day.